G'day, ZiggyD here, and welcome to my first impression skill guide for the new skill in Path of Exile, Cyclone. So, I just have to say, I'm glad I made a character for this skill, because from what I've tested with it so far, it's pretty awesome. Now, the point of these videos is to provide you guys a bit of a guide on how Cyclone functions, what we know about it so far and its various interactions, and to give you guys some ideas on how you can, go about placing it into your build and how you can go about getting it to function. Of course, a couple months down the track, we'll know a lot more about the skill and how it interacts with various things, and there'll be a lot more builds and things like that out for it. But at the moment, there's still a lot we can extrapolate from the skill itself, how it works, and just from basic testing now. So, firstly, let's talk about the basic mechanics. The movement of Cyclone is Diablo 2 style instead of Diablo 3 style. So for those of you who haven't played either of those games, basically it's a point A to point B skill. So if I click here, I can't change the direction of the skill. It goes until I get there or I hit a wall or I die. In Diablo 3 it was a bit different. You could hold the skill and you would move around sort of like you would do normally running. So it requires a bit of planning and a bit of positioning in combat, which I'm actually a fan of. I feel it suits Path of Exile more, and I'm sure a lot of people will like it, but maybe some people will have preferred the more organic sort of movement style. But basically this means you can do like a short range cast like that, and it'll cost the actual amount for it, and it'll just take you to that point, and then it'll finish up and you can keep casting. So you can sort of keep changing directions like this with just a small delay in between. Now, the way that the mana cost works for it is the mana cost can be fairly high when you have it well supported. But it's only a thing, it only costs when you first cast it, so it's not something that drains your, I'm a blood magic build, so it's not something that drains my life as I go. As you can see, my regen takes effect after that initial hit from the initial cast amount. So that means if you're doing a bunch of small cyclones like this, you're going to be using a lot more mana or life, to change directions constantly because you're doing a lot more casts. And so that means, if you're trying to move through a large pack, you're better off sort of doing a long target like that. But it really depends on the pack and how you're fighting them, and also whether the mana costs are a big concern for you. Now the skill is affected by move speed. So if I take my moves by 20% move speed boots off, it moves a lot slower. However, this is good and bad, and this is kind of interesting about this skill because it means that move speed is both a blessing and a curse at the same time. Basically, moving faster is always good. You can move faster through the maps you're trying to farm. You can farm faster and all that jazz. So I move quite slowly without that 20% move speed, and it's nice to be able to move a lot faster and farm packs a lot faster. However, with that move speed, I spend less time over mobs, so I don't hit them as much. Basically, with less move speed, you're going to hit mobs that you are cycloning through a lot more. So let's cyclone through this pack here. So you can sort of get a bit of an idea of the damage I do and how fast I hit them. But if I reduce my move speed by 20%, I'll spend more time on them, so more time hitting them. I'm pretty sure I'm getting like an extra hit per mob there. Just have to make sure I don't actually die. So you sort of have this interesting decision to make. I think people will go in either direction with this, where some people will opt for a lot of move speed, and other people will opt for a lot less move speed, instead have something that hits a lot faster. Now, it is also affected by attack speed, so at the moment I have faster attacks on it, and as you can see, that increases the DPS from 420 to 320 to 420, so that makes a pretty big difference there, and it actually has an attack speed in the information here. So attacks per second 2.0.2, so if I take that off, it's 1.5, and it's also affected by my attack speed from my dual wielding, so that's pretty interesting overall there. Alright, so now let's take a look at the skill itself, its tags and the various stats on the actual skill gem, how that sort of works out. So the first one to take note of is the damage effectiveness of 35%. Obviously that's a big reduction, but it's sort of a skill that attacks very quickly, so that's often how they balance those sorts of skills. However, what that also means is that any skill gems you add, like added fire or added cold or added lightning, are also reduced to 35% of their effectiveness. So that is a big decrease, but again, that's a balance point. However, since this very patch that Cyclone was introduced in, that also affects life gain on hit. So I have a life gain on hit gem here that I was testing with this skill. I found I don't really need it because I have enough life leech for my claws and things like that. But it also means that life gain on hit is now scaled to that 35% effectiveness. So that can be a big reduction. You know, you're hitting fast, so you're getting a lot of life gain on hit either way, but it's still going to be a lot less life gain on hit. You know, this isn't such a big deal because we have never really known the difference for this, but obviously for builds like Lightning Arrow and things like that, that damage effectiveness nerf is going to hurt them a bit more. But that's still something to be aware of when, you know, calculating out how much life gain on hit and life leech and things like that you'll have. So it is an attack and it's a melee attack. Now I do know that it is affected by 2+2 melee range on the Master of the Arena skill there. So although it has an AoE tag as well, and other AoE melee abilities aren't affected by this melee and weapon unarmed range, this also scales off your weapon range. So if you're using a two-handed weapon, you're going to have slightly more range, and if you're using the Master of the Arena perk, the passive skill there, you're also going to have increased AoE. Now, as I was saying, it does have an AoE tag, so that means it should be affected by things like increased area effect. I did a bit of testing here in this 4-link, and I can't really see it at the moment, and a few people have commented saying that at the moment it might be bugged. So if it is bugged, it could be something that we see getting pretty fixed pretty soon in a little bit of a patch update. But it has the AoE tag, so it should, by all intents and purposes, be affected by AoE. Now that also could mean that it could be affected by concentrated effect, which means obviously you're going to have to Cyclone right over the top of mobs because the amount is going to be reduced, but it could increase your damage. So that could be an interesting thing to play around with, and that's the point of this video, giving you guys some ideas on what to play around with. Now, as I was saying earlier, it is affected by attack speed, and I think attack speed is actually really important for Cyclone. So I think high attack speed builds with like lots of life gain on hit and life leech and things like that are going to do well with Cyclone because you're going to hit more, as you path over the top of mobs, and you could combine that with low move speed as well. Now, as you level it, you get 4% increased physical damage, which is obviously very important for life leech and just for making the skill a bit better with a physical damage build, which is what I recommend for Cyclone because of the the damage effectiveness reduction on elemental damage. I recommend a physical build, but we could see people come up with elemental builds that work with this as well. The other stat you get whenever you level it up is increased attack speed by 2 points per level. I'm pretty sure that would continue all the way through it, but that is quite a lot of attack speed for leveling a skill gem. So as you can see, just by that being a leveling bonus for the skill gem itself, we can sort of see that attack speed is something that really goes with Cyclone. So the final thing to notice is the quality bonus on Cyclone. For every 1 point of quality, you get 1% increased AoE. So as I was saying, it is affected by increased AoE skill gems, or it should be. The quality also gives that increased AoE, so that's obviously a fairly good bonus. 20% on what is essentially a fairly small AoE isn't a big deal, but when you're talking melee skills, any increase in area of effect can be very, very helpful. So it can allow you to hit extra mobs around you, like maybe one off to the side, and that's going to give you more life gain on hit, and it's going to give you more more life leech and things like that. So it's great from a survivability point of view, and also just from a farming point of view. So something I was thinking about with it being affected by attack speed is I think builds with frenzy, like builds that get frenzy charges, could be very strong with this. As you see, at the moment I'm just using the frenzy skill, but we could see people using blood rage since it also gives life leech, and since this is a skill that really syncs nicely with life leech. Blood Rage could be a pretty interesting one to try with it as well. You're going to build up those frenzy stacks. As you use Cyclone, you don't need to stop and gain your frenzy charges by attacking someone like this. So, in terms of strategy for use, whenever you're targeting, say I'm trying to hit this rare here, you should be targeting past him. Now, I'm trying to hit all of these mobs per cast that I can, but if you say, if I just target and stop on him, I will, unless he moves, I will stop like pretty much almost right on top of him, and that means I'm going to hit him a lot less. But if I target just behind him, I'm going to toggle him on. Now it's obviously something you have to practice a fair bit, because if I target all the way out here, I'm wasting a lot of time before I can do anything again. So there's a fair bit of importance of strategy and positioning, and since it's also a straight line A to B sort of thing, you want to also line the packs up. So overall, I feel like it's a pretty interesting skill. I've really enjoyed playing it with so far, and as I said, I'm very glad that I actually made a build for it, because it's pretty badass, really. I'm pretty excited for the game to have an AoE melee skill like this, and you know, for it also to be the first skill that allows you to attack while moving, basically. So it should set an interesting precedent for skills in the future that we could be seeing. So anyway, hopefully you guys have found this video fairly helpful and now have some ideas about how you can maybe incorporate Cyclone into your own build. One other thing, in the description I'll leave some details about how you can actually get the skill, what quests it's available, and things like that from. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.